decoration we had was like spider. Yeah. So we like
I still have to do this. I still do public.
Flags.
Well, I'll go through it. Yeah, I've been horrible about remembering. I apologize.
Get stuck into the
Are you ready?
Oh, sorry.
You good? I'd like to call my last meeting to order and thank everybody for coming this evening. And let the record reflect that all elected members of the board are here, and Cameron, our student representative, is here for the evening. We'll go ahead and do the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Review of the agenda. Are there any changes, additions? I know we need to add a student rep.
Yeah, so this is the template for the study session agenda, and there's not a spot for the student rep, and so just want to add her, Cameron, Skeeth in there for a spot to speak. And just want to make the school board aware of some changes. We moved the budget forecast, fund balance forecast and planning up to item number 4. Approval of curriculum. Added some emails as we're going to talk about athletics and their classification. We'll go through that. We're bringing in Mr. Sifferman by Zoom as he's not currently here at work. And then just want to mention that there was a PowerPoint for HOSA. I want them to update on the fall leadership conference that was that they attended at POU University, the Pacific Lutheran University.
Okay. Why don't we put Cameron in at, say, we'll call that 2A.
Okay.
That's right before the HOSA conference update. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. We'll go ahead and have public input. We have a couple people signed up to speak this evening. Andrea? Already done. And Jeff? Estes? You're up.
Up already? Greetings, school board and administration. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Jeff Estes and I reside up in Startup, Washington. I just wanted to speak briefly tonight and thank and congratulate the outgoing board members for your years of service and encourage the new ones that are coming in. And one thing I wanted to bring up is people have started asking me about changes and things going on here at the school district. And the one thing I'm hoping that we can focus on, especially in the next year or two, is more on academics. And when I look at the school report cards, shows that we've got some work still to do. And so I hope we can get those numbers up, and especially the attendance and math. And anything I can do to help in that endeavor, I'd be glad to. I looked at outreach, a position here at the school district once, but I just didn't like the idea of penalizing families and parents if their kids weren't attending schools. I'd rather look at it from a positive reinforcement type of method, and I find that's very successful. It's amazing what kids will do for a game of chess and stickers. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly is just going forward, the curriculum. I know you guys are looking at iReady tonight. I think it's important to know and ask, does it really work for all kids? So that's a question to put yourself, and I think you guys also employ Faunus and Pinnell, and I'm not sure if that's phonics based. It probably should be, but I don't think it is. And a good question for that is, what's the fill-in gap on that? But any new curriculum and teaching strategies, I think we should make sure we encourage unity and collaboration and not division. Let's stop being demeaning to families and parents, because really we need them. We need them to work with the school district to have the kids get better education. And I think of a great example. I don't know Russ very well. I can't say we're necessarily friends. We bumped into each other at Fred Meyer, I believe it was. But there's something that we share in common. And I didn't know that until 2020 when he was Zooming in a meeting. And behind him I saw stacks and stacks of these records, or vinyls is what they call them nowadays. And I'm a big music fan. I collect digital. So Russ and I could probably debate, argue, and discuss the pros and cons of analog versus digital for quite some time. But rather than focus on that, and what I hope the district picks up from my analogy here is, if we both love music, that's what it's about. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next up is the annual organization policy, unless I skipped something.
Where did we put Cameron?
For oath of office.
Cameron, Steve?
I have
That's
Cameron
that.
on 2A,
2A, I'm sorry, okay.
so actually it's oath of office.
So just to give you, everybody in the audience, how this works is, we're gonna, every 2 years, we swear in either 2 board members or 3. And those of you that were here at 6:30, we had 3 positions open, District 1, District 3, and District 4. And tonight, we're gonna swear in District 3 and District 4. After consideration and looking at personal commitments, et cetera, we're gonna have to reopen District 1 again, and so we'll advertise for that to be appointed, like that. And so in District 3, we wanna swear in Mr. Dave Shepard, and in District 4, we'll swear in Mary Ann Naisland, who was fulfilling an unexpired term and subsequently was elected. And so this is always a little bit rocky for me, because I read it and they follow after, and so we'll see if I can get this right. But Dave, if you would come up, Mr. Shepard, I'll give you a copy of this. We'll swear you in, and literally, when we're done with this part, Cindy and Russ will leave, and the new boards will assume office. So if you could just come over here and,
Where do you want me?
right there's fine. If you'd raise your right hand, and then repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Dave Shepard, do solemnly swear or affirm
Dave Shepard, do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
that I will support the constitutional laws of the United States and the constitutional laws of the State of Washington,
and I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office
of Sultan School District Number 311,
of Sultan School District Number 311,
Director District 3 for a 4-year term,
Director District 3 for a 4-year term,
according to the law, to the best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Okay. I think the second time, I'll get a little smoother. If you raise your right hand, please. I, Mary Ann Naisland, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, Mary Ann Naisland, do solemnly swear and/or affirm
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office
of Sultan School District Number 311, Director District 4 for a 4-year term,
of Sultan School District Number 311, Director District 4 for a 4-year term,
according to the law, to the best of my ability.
according to the law, to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. So we'll make the transition.
Do that.
bronze nameplate. Russ,
Oh. Okay, go get this black for me.
Cindy.
Yeah, yes, I'll hand it.
Your name, please? Well, yeah, we'll move this. Don't look so panicked. Vice Chair, you want to take it from here?
Dan, are we ready to move on?
ready to move on?
So as vice chair, now that we are Rustless, that's kind of funny.
That was good.
Top of my head. I will go ahead and continue. Our next thing is the annual organization policy, where we will nominate and vote on a new chair or president, and nominate and vote on a new vice chair or vice president, and also committees. So the first order will be, do we have a nomination for chair or president?
Madam Co-Chair, I make a motion to nominate Gigi Goldner for chair from this point going forward.
Thank you, I think. Do we need to do a voice vote, or is this everybody, or has it be individual?
Yeah, I think you do a voice is fine.
All in favor of,
You have to do a roll vote.
Yeah.
thank you, see, you can't leave. So all in favor, Byron, yes or no? Yeah,
Yes.
nay?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you, I think. Nomination for vice chair. I will nominate Mary Ann Naslin. Byron, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Dave? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We have a new chair and vice chair. All right, then we have committees. I emailed out the committees. Are there ones that you guys are interested in?
New facilities, I guess. That one. Sure.
What about WIAA for you, Byron?
I do, so I'll stay with that one.
Marion?
I will continue transitioning for legislative representative, and the official vote is June 1st for that position. And so it will be a transitional period between now and June 1st.
I am currently the ledge rep, and then Marianne is going to start kind of slowly doing things with me. We'll do them together, switch off and things like that until the vote is in June.
And that committee is a 2-year term.
Yes. And that'll be up in June. Any questions, anybody? No? Okay. All right. Cameron, you are next.
Hi all, I'm Cameron Skeet. I'm a junior at Sultan High School. So I just want to do some quick shout outs to be easy and quick. So for our sports, this is a big opportunity. So our cheer team, our competition cheer team qualified for state in this weekend at their last competition and took first in fall game day. And I think that's really big because it's continuously going to state, and I feel like that's a great thing. It really should be celebrated. And then one more thing, for Sultan we do Turk of the Month, and for November we have Frida Chavez, which I think is to be a great shout out just because the Turk of the Month is a big deal and students vote on who that Turk of the Month is, so I feel like that's a great way to celebrate students for good things they're doing at Sultan. So yeah, those are my little things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron.
The cheer thing is awesome. The
It
cheer
is.
team does great.
They do,
like,
they do.
Every year. Okay. Next, we have update of HOSA Fall Leadership Conference. Hi, ladies.
Hello, new faces. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brandy Larnell, and I teach all the health science classes, the programs at Sultan High School. With me is our HOSA Future Health Professionals president. This is their second year as president at Sultan High School. This is Peyton Schlicker. And so we've got other attendees as well, and actually everybody here are part of our officer team. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our trip to Pacific Lutheran University November 18th. It was a Saturday. It was a Saturday very well spent, and we went down for the Fall Leadership Conference for HOSA. So for new board members and those who don't know what HOSA is, HOSA is a career and technical organization that aligns with all the health science programs at Sultan High School and high schools across the state. Its goal is to develop next generation health science leaders. It's the premier organization recognized across the country for up and coming leaders and students interested in careers in the healthcare industry. It's an international student organization recognized by the Department of Education and the Health Science Education Division of ACTE. So they're pretty well regarded. So through HOSA service at the chapter level at the high school, as well as in multiple competitions at the state level, students get the opportunity to serve their community, develop their leadership skills, network connections in healthcare and health science, look for a scholarship, and then also plan their careers, like how they're going to enter their careers as health professionals. I have a lot of students involved at this point. The programs have grown exponentially over the last about 10 years, and we have lots and lots of students with lots of career aspirations to be healthcare professionals. So here are some pictures, just random pictures I stole off our Sultan Insta. You made that, Maddie. This is from our Sultan HOSA Instagram account. We do have two social media managers that make sure they're monitoring appropriate social media use and promoting HOSA and its mission at Sultan High School. But if you follow us, we are Sultan HS HOSA at Instagram, and we've got lots of things going on. We also are on Facebook. So we're a busy group. I'd like you to meet our officers. There's Peyton. She is our HOSA president. This is her second year. She's with us today. Grace Plummer is our HOSA vice president. This is her second year serving as an officer. She did have to leave early, but she was here to give Russ his gummy bears. Jenna Fleming is our secretary. That's also her second year as secretary. And Miss Paige Van Holly right here, second year as our treasurer. So we've got some seasoned leadership in our chapter, and we have big goals for this year that we are kind of knocking out of the park already. We do have two of our other officers here, Maddie Pels and Bella Webb. They are our social media managers. And then also we do have representatives from HOSA serve on our ASB as well, and that's McKenna Murphy and Paige Schlicker. So in November, we took a large group of students, I want to say there were close to 30 of us at the end count, that we went down to PLU on a Saturday for HOSA's Fall Leadership Conference. This is where students had the opportunity to self-select different educational sessions they could go to like any other professional conference based on their areas of interest. Also got a chance to practice some healthcare leadership and work with other professionals in the field. So a really neat thing. Plus they got to explore the campus because the sessions were spread all over PLU. So they got to have a look at the campus as well. This is just a little glimpse of our day. There we are on the bus. It was very early and very cold. And then we are getting ready for the opening session. So you can, there's Maddie up there and Grace. And then some of our students going up and greeting Maria Vasquez, who can't be here tonight because she's ill. But she is our Sultan High School representative at the state leadership level of HOSA. She's the Washington HOSA president this year, and so she led the FLC, the Fall Leadership Conference. She was in charge of leading that whole conference. So there's Maria there, and here's a little video. It's about a minute of her opening speech, but we are very proud of Maria and how she represented Sultan High School, our community, and future health professionals with her grace and professionalism. If you just want to play the little excerpt. Maybe.
It's a reminder that change is inevitable, and that by daring to create, you turn challenges into opportunity. And now, as I transition from President-elect to President of Washington HOSA, Dare to Create has taken on renewed significance. It's a personal mantra that reminds me that I'm not just an observer, but an active participant in my role within the team. It's been my driving force, motivating me to come together with my fellow team members, share experiences, collaborate, and embrace our own unique strengths and talents. With this phrase in mind, I strive to script chapters filled with progress, resilience, and excellence within our team. Embracing this quote also means embracing the profound capacities we all possess to dare to be. It's a call to action and an invitation to make a heartfelt impact on the world. As we welcome you to the conference, remember that it's in our hands to collectively shape a brighter and more inspiring future in the realm of healthcare. Welcome once again to the Fall Leadership Conference of 2023, where together we'll continue to create, to innovate, and to make a lasting difference in the world of healthcare.
So it was kind of fun. It was a cool teacher moment to watch her do that. So we had lots going on during the day. I'm going to have students just briefly talk to you, let you know what types of sessions they went to. Again, they got to choose where they went. Would you like to talk a little bit about the conference?
So when I was there, I started off with a respiratory therapist thing, like session, where a respiratory therapist had his own presentation of what his day-to-day work life is. And that was cool for me because I've been interested in specializing in like lungs and heart kind of thing. And then since I'm a senior, I got the opportunity to go to a physician one that had a ticket we had to have. So we got to see how the process it takes to become a physician. Yeah. And then I went to a couple other ones, but for me it was really cool to hear about all the people that got to learn about like college and leadership.
Why did you attend the session on physicians and becoming a physician?
I've wanted to be a doctor since I was in like 3rd grade, and I haven't really changed my mind.
Okay. Maddie, what session did you go to that you told me was really great?
The Be the Match one?
Be the Match. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So Be the Match is an organization that helps save people's lives. There was a lady there who talked about how Be the Match saved her. She had cancer, and Be the Match has this anonymous person, or they find anonymous people, or if they give out their information, but that are like your match. And for this lady, she had what was it? It was a bone marrow, or
She had leukemia, blood cancer.
okay, yeah. And she had other people. Anonymous person brings cells of their own and transferred it all the way. What was it in Germany? Sweden, all the way back to Washington, and
They found a stem cell donor for her
yeah.
that was 100% match in Sweden. So,
And now she's cancer free.
Bella?
Yeah, another one we went to was a college like prep one, and it had a lot of information on like how scholarships, how that works, and like different ways you can go in careers in the medical field. And it really had a lot of information on like how we can really push going into the medical field and scholarships, and just a lot of information.
Paige?
I also went to the respiratory one and the Be the Match one, but I also went to one where it talked about like dentistry and getting into dental school and things like that. And I don't remember where the school is, but they're building a brand new school here in Washington that has like a bunch of cutting edge technology, and they have like AR, or not AR, they have VR like machines that you can use and all new fancy technology and stuff like that, and I thought it was interesting.
And they each got to choose their own educational track while they were there, which was pretty cool. So we're in a general session there, some of my students with Maria up on stage, and there were a lot of us in that room. So I just kind of did a pullback to see some of the kids that were sitting in our area. Go ahead. So again, they explored the campus, they looked at sessions in physical therapy, respiratory therapy, airway management. There was someone there demonstrating how to insert an artificial airway into a patient, and students could go up and try to do that. Is one of you here that did that? Did you do that?
I was with Camden.
With Camden, and she ended up inflating the dummy's stomach, but that's a learning process. Okay, some physician training programs, leadership in healthcare, college track medical programs, and then the Be the Match stem cell donor registry was a big deal. My younger class this year is going to take on be active participants with Be the Match, and they're going to be the champions of that community service project.
Grace already signed up.
Yeah. So this was our speaker at Be the Match, and you might recognize her. This is Tammy Nesting. Tammy is the former principal of Sultan High School, who hired me to work one class a day as a .2 FTE. She was the very first principal I ever had coming as a nurse and coming into education. And for her to be the speaker to my students now, with the rigor of the program and the knowledge base of my students now, and teaching them about her cancer and her donor experience, and then also getting a chance to visit and be with her again, was really another really great full circle moment. So something fantastic. Don't cry, because I was already crying. You stop that right now. So her story is very moving. She is an educator of many years. She gave me some of the best advice of my entire teaching career. I came in and there was no curriculum. There was no nothing. There was an empty classroom that I shared with a grumpy math teacher we want. And I said, Tammy, do you have anything for me to go on? And she said, Brandy, don't worry about it. You just go teach. I'll take care of the rest. You go teach. And that's what I did. And here we are today. And then I got to bring my students to meet with her and listen to her story of survival. So that was pretty amazing. And she was super proud of Sultan High School. She was singing her praises. So it was a good day all around. Go ahead. So there we are again at the end of the day. It was a long day. We were a little pooped and tired, but they absolutely took the time to pose for me. And let me get a picture of their smiling faces. So these are all the students that went and had a chance to experience fall leadership. This definitely is the precursor to a state competition. It gives students the opportunity to learn, to grow, to set goals, and is something I hope that we can do every year going forward. You want to add?
Yeah. After this conference, I heard a lot of people just really excited about like the college setting, which was really cool to hear. There's one student, she's a freshman, who was so excited she went home and told her brother that he has to apply to PLU so she can go back. Yeah, a lot of people just really liked seeing what it's like to be in a college classroom, and it was like inspiring for them.
So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank
And
you.
the bus ride. We needed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question? Oh, I'm sorry.
How many members in our local group here?
Well, every high school, every health science student in my classes are aligned with HOSA. So if I wanted to get nitpicky, I'd say, every student I teach is aligned with this CTSO. But students that went to this, is that what you're asking?
25 of them there, but how
Yep.
many in the Sultan School District? How many members?
Okay,
How large
help
is it?
me. I'm looking at my boss. How many is there? There's,
6 classes times 30.
yeah, 600. I'm gonna guess about 160,
Five
five classes, because I teach AVID too, so
That's
five.
great participation.
150 students. And Dave, come visit my classroom. I'll show you how many state awards we've won. Any other questions?
Wonderful.
Anybody have questions? No? Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys. Good
You guys
job.
did a great job. All right. Online, I'm seeing fund balance forecast and planning, but on my written one, I'm seeing approval of Sky Valley Tree Service.
The tree service is down.
Yeah.
What do you, it's fund balance. It's fund balance.
When I printed the detailed, it printed it differently, so. All right, so fund balance forecast and planning. Dan.
All right.
Hi.
Good evening, directors. Welcome, Director Shepherd. So yes, at the end, we talked about a little bit for a couple months, the desire for the board to have a forecast looking forward. I think when we made the realization that our enrollment came in significantly under what our budget estimate was at that point, we have been talking about this for a couple months now, and now that we are done with the first quarter of the year, September, October, November, felt it was an appropriate time to kind of give you a summation of the first quarter, but then more importantly to look forward through the next 3 quarters based on the information that we have right now. So I did present you a PowerPoint. You can look at it on your tablet there up on the screen. So again, as the end of the first quarter, fiscal year 22-23, our financial forecast. Next slide. Yeah. So to understand where we are today, I think it behooves us to take just a moment and look back. It wasn't that long ago that the COVID-19 pandemic hit us, which was been in spring of 2020. On March 13th specifically, I believe, was when the governor's emergency order took place. And in response to that, districts, our district and all districts across the state of Washington and districts across the nation received additional funding to help mitigate and navigate those challenges that COVID-19 dropped on us. So during that period of time, we got a variety of different types of funding sources. From the state, we got one called GEER, Digital Equity and Inclusion. We received money for transportation funding shortfall. We received proceeds for an enrollment funding shortfall. From the federal level, we received funding called LTR, Learn to Return. We received CARES, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. They did an extension of the summer food service program where basically meals were free for all students for 2 1/3 years, basically 2 complete school years plus the spring of 2020. And in total, all of those different sources of essentially one-time funds or funds in response to the COVID-19 pandemic totaled approximately $4 million. So the district during that period of time from those various sources received about $4 million in benefit, which was put towards, again, mitigating and navigating the challenges that COVID-19 presented to us very unexpectedly. Next slide, please. So back to quote-unquote normal, if we ever, we hear that a lot, and what is that? Well, with the pandemic actually having now passed, thankfully, many Washington State districts, districts across the nation, now face a new myriad of challenges, okay? During COVID, obviously, it had its own specific challenges, but now we still have, doesn't mean that now that it's over that all those challenges have gone away. In fact, many of them are greater than before the pandemic took place. So again, end of the one-time COVID response funding, the stuff that I just talked about, that now has waned, has run its course, and has now been utilized for various appropriate expenditures. Declining or flat enrollment, again, we are not, fortunately, that is not our situation, but many districts across the state, across the nation have seen declines and some significant declines in their enrollment. Student learning loss. Part of ESSER 3, one of the federal programs, was specifically 20% allocation, was specifically to address learning loss. So that has been something that's been identified from early on and continues till today. Student mental health issues, we hear about that a lot as far as the challenges that isolation and the pandemic brought on to our students. And then obviously inflationary pressures that we've all feel in our personal lives and also in the cost of doing business for a school district. Next slide. So you might say to yourself, okay, well, where are we at in reference to where others are at? So we recently received from ESD, which is the Educational Service District 189, that's the one that we belong to, in Anacortes. They have, there are 35 districts within the ESD. And what you have here on the list is based on their fund balance numbers at the end of the 22-23 year, which was as of August 31st of 2023. And what I show here is districts that have lost at least 1/3 of or greater of their fund balance over the past 3 years. Now, on that list, you will see large districts, Mukilteo and Marysville. You will see intermediate-sized districts such as Anacortes, Arlington, Oak Harbor, and you will see small districts. Ferndale also would be an intermediate-sized district. You'll see small districts, Mount Baker, Lopez Island, Granite Falls, Coopville, and so forth. So these are issues that face all districts, whether you be large, medium, or small in size. Pressures on fund balance, challenges that were brought on initially by the pandemic that have now continued once the pandemic has eased, but unfortunately the funding for those things has, in many cases, been exhausted. So note this list here comprises 37% of the districts within ESD 189. The average decline in fund balance for all 35 districts is, it's hard to see there, 27.2%. So on average, all of the 35 districts within ESD 189, the average district has lost 27.2% of their fund balance for the last 2 years. Ours, I'm happy to say, is we've done better than that. Ours has dropped 15.05%. So we're doing better, have done better over the past 3 years than the ESD-wide average.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
before you move on?
Sure.
So what about the ones that did not lose on their fund balance?
There are some, again, there are much fewer that didn't lose versus those that did. I gave just an excerpt here, Gigi, but yes, in all fairness, there are others.
Is there any commonality between those that didn't lose, or?
That didn't lose, there were just a few there were a couple that actually increased slightly. One of note that stayed essentially flat, South Whitby School District has stayed essentially flat over the 3 years. They were less than a 1% decline over the 3 years. But by and large, most of them were decreases, and like I said, some very significant decreases.
And I would say in our case, part of our decline is we budgeted for 67 growth.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And, but we're gonna get into the athletic discussion, and it's gonna be kind of contrary to this, where we're talking about moving up a classification because our high school has grown. And so there's just some, but you can see there we're 15% down, and some of these, have lost significant enrollment,
Well, you look at, obviously, a very, very small district, LaConner, I mean, they have $25,000 in their bank account. I mean, they're essentially broke. They're on interest-bearing warrants, and they're basically, trying to make it month to month. But there are other districts up there of significant size. Anacortes is a good-sized school district with only $623,000 ending fund balance. That is very low for a district of that size, very low.
Any of these at risk of being taken over by the state?
You hear a lot about Marysville. Obviously, Marysville is a little bit of a unique situation in that they failed a levy and they missed one complete year's collection cycle, so they're a little bit of an anomaly. It is a lengthy process to go through, whether you go through what they call binding conditions, and then eventually a dissolution of the district is a multi-year process. It's not something that happens just overnight. It typically would be 5 years or more before something like that would happen. So, but you hear a lot about Marysville right now because they are in a very tough situation right now.
So if the situation, Dave, gets, you put a plan together, the district is responsible to fix it. If you're unable to fix it, the worst case scenario, if it plays out over 5 years, is the neighboring districts would absorb you, is how it would work. So you look at Marysville right here, not to make them about, this meeting about them, but they show money in their bank, they're actually
They were okay as of this. It's where
multiple millions in the hole.
Yeah.
Multiple.
Yeah, where they're really meeting their challenges, obviously, they're now into the new school year, and that's when their resources are really starting to dwindle very, very rapidly. So, anyway, this is not about Marysville, this is about us. Next slide, please. Okay, so enrollment for 2023-24, again, Dan kind of touched on this. While many districts have seen, again, significant enrollment declines in the past few years, we've seen growth. We've bucked that trend. With this knowledge and all the outward signs of continued increase in population, you just have to drive up on the Basin Road and see all these houses. There's no reason to think that growth would not continue. We budgeted for a growth, again, a total of 92 FTE, like Dan said, 67 traditional, 25 in ALE for a total of 92, over the numbers that we had in 22-23, our most completed, recently completed fiscal year. However, as of December 23, we are still approximately 100, and I did this, I looked at it today, it's a little bit, 99.27, I believe is the number, but anyway, approximately 100 below that estimate.
Hey, Dan, I'm sorry, but could you tell us what the current enrollment is?
As far as total enrollment for,
Because I've looked and I've seen 2,088, I've seen 1944, I've seen 1927.
Let's do questions though, instead of just like jumping in. Let's wait until we're
Sure.
done and then
Okay.
questions. Thank you, Jeff.
all right, so in response to this, we had talked about this, and in response to this, the board, we said that we would have an adjustment in January. If we did nothing and left this discrepancy, we would have an adjustment in January. It was the feeling of the board that we wanted, the consensus, majority of the board felt, that we wanted to mitigate that abrupt adjustment in January and do a manual rollback in the month of December, which I did do. I reached out to OSPI and we rolled it back by 80 FTE, and we saw the impact of that in November. The district will realize the remaining adjustment between budget and actual will then happen in January of approximately 20. So we've essentially 80% of that, we have absorbed that, and the final 20% adjustment will happen automatically in January when we do the true-up. Next page. All right, so mid-year adjustments. When we found out in September, when we did that initial count, and we realized that we were at that time, significantly short of budget estimate, we said, okay, well, you know, what do we do? Let's take some corrective action. Let's try to affect the things that we can affect. So the shortfall was estimated about $1.2 million, a negative $1.2 million based on those 100 students. So we presented to the board back in September a list of potential cuts or maneuvers to adjust to the now decreased expectation of revenues. We talked about postponing a curriculum purchase. We talked about additional funds transfer from capital projects for salary and benefits. We talked about reduction in discretionary extra time, elimination of vacation leave, cash outs for administrative staff, reducing field trips, furlough days, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole laundry list of various things, and we have fixed some dollars to those in trying to come up with a reasonable course of action that we could do to help mitigate this shortfall. Note that the board was advised at that time that the reductions would not be limited just to 23-24, but that the magnitude of that shortfall would cause impact to the 24-25 budget development as well. So we will do what we can this year, but there will be additional adjustments that will be necessary to mitigate the effect of that revenue shortfall. Next slide, Kayla. So where are we now? Okay, so typically I would have done this presentation at a business meeting, but December we don't have a business meeting. So we are not done with November yet. So the November fund balance is an estimate. The $1,631,000 for November is an estimate. We'll have that done later this week. But based on that and looking at what our average payroll, average payable run is every 3 weeks, plugging in the anticipated revenues based on the shortfall and so forth, reasonably at this point, I'm looking at an ending fund balance of just under $450,000. Again, the lion's share of that is going to be the $1.2 million in shortfall for apportionment as far as enrollment is concerned. So I will print, there is in more detail to this report, which I do as part of my monthly report at the business meeting. But again, in December, we don't have a business meeting, and I don't have those financials done yet, so I will bring those for you in January. Next slide. Mid-year assumptions. So there are some significant assumptions that are built into even that $450,000 ending fund balance. Estimated DNR revenues, January, February, March of 2024. Dan has worked very hard to build relationships with DNR, and we took a look at some projections that they provided us, and we feel reasonably confident that they will deliver to us $450,000. We budgeted $400 for this year, but we're thinking $450. They were talking about early in 2024, so I have put $150,000 both in the months of January, February, and March to get to that $450,000 number. Additional transfer from capital projects fund to general fund, approximately $300,000 needs to be confirmed. Feeling fairly confident that the available revenues will be there in June of 2024 to do that additional $300,000 transfer. Safety net award, we have estimated that equal to the amount received in the prior fiscal year of 22-23. It could be higher than that. Paul's nodding. I mean, that could be a conservative number, but I've plugged in that number for right now. And then again, actual amounts that would differ from these estimates shown above would cause a corresponding increase or decrease in that ending fund balance. So if all of a sudden that DNR money came in at $1 million instead of $450,000, you would have a direct increase in that ending estimate. If it were less than the $450,000, you would have a corresponding decrease in the estimate. Note, Sultan School District is estimated to receive additional transportation funding of approximately $79,000 beginning in February of 2024. Currently not included in the analysis, waiting confirmation of that, but preliminarily we feel that that's approximately the additional, based on ridership, that we will receive beginning in February of 2024. So when we do the true-up in January, we'll have much better information to integrate that into the analysis. Next page. And then just in summary, I guess I'd like to leave you with the fact that school funding, as we had shared, this is a systemic problem. This is not a Sultan problem, okay? As you could see, there are a lot of districts, large, intermediate, small districts, that are having greater challenges than we're currently experiencing. More districts, though, will experience financial challenges, some severe in 24, 25, and beyond. Marysville, again, is our most obvious example. I know North Shore is going through a series of conversations right now, difficult conversations they're having as far as cuts that they're going to be making. Their estimated fund balance went from $4.2 million to negative $300,000 within 1 year. So about a $4.5 million delta within a 12-month period. We must adapt and change to the current reality of Washington State public education funding. And while we have been insulated from these impacts that these other districts are seeing, we are not immune from the impacts of these. So,
I just want to comment on the timber sales a little bit. I have a tool that I can predict how much money they produce for the junior taxing districts, and there's another sale scheduled for the summer months of '24 that's not included in here. If that happened, as they said, it would be about $300,000 to the general fund, about $150,000 to the capital projects fund. Last year, we budgeted $1.2 million, and because of how much money was coming in, nothing basically came in. $100,000.
A little less than $100,000, yeah.
So there's always a battle going on with harvesting timber, and it's constant. And there are times when we've gotten quite a bit of money from those, and the last couple, 2 or 3 years has been really non-existent, as they have really clamped down on the linear feet that is harvested every year. And so it's not a resource that we can count on as much. But those are sales that I have direct conversations with them, and the one we're talking about in January, if you've heard of the gun range, it's supposed to go in up on Sultan Basin Road. It's the timber sales called High Caliber, and there's numbers I plug into a tool, and it'll tell me exactly how much each of the junior taxing districts receives based on that. But because of politics and because of various things, that they aren't happening as readily as they were, and so that's another challenge. When you take $1 million out of a budget like ours, it's just as significant. I mean significant. And then when you have we're fortunate we weren't losing enrollment, because when you budget for growth that doesn't happen, you don't receive revenue you planned on, and that's the challenge.
It's a good example of why we don't budget to zero, why we don't spend everything we have, because then you're going to be negative but for one district, you said. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because our overall budget is close to $40 million, and running a private business where your payroll every month is $2.5 million. Think about being a business person. How would you run a business? Would you run it on this low of a fund balance? The answer is probably no.
Byron, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Dave, questions? Mary Ann?
I do. So we won't get our basically our monthly finances for December, correct?
I would have brought them at the end of this month, but we don't have another meeting this month. So.
Okay. Then, question then. So I know at last meeting we talked about how you were still working on October's equity balances. Is that finalized now? Because you said there were some
Yes.
hiccups. So RASB, especially for for the high school should have that by now already.
I believe, yes, the revised one, the initial one that was sent out was, like I said, within about $30 of the final, so it was, the difference was very, very small. But yes, I believe the final one was
Okay.
sent out, so.
And you say you're still working on the November one right now?
Working on November right now.
Okay.
Yes, we'll have that done later this week. So we'll get that done and out to you before we leave. I'll be here through the 22nd, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
So Jeff, the question that you have, take care
I
of it
was
at
just
the end.
curious what the actual enrollment number is currently.
Currently?
Traditional is 1933, I believe. I looked at that, I think it's 1933 traditional plus the ALE number. Jeff, I don't know what it's called, the ALE number I'm talking about. But if you want to send me an email tomorrow, I'm happy to send you that.
Right, thank you.
Yes, the gentleman in the second row.
What are we doing to ensure that we don't miss by that many in the future? I know sitting on that side, I've had
Yeah.
that conversation, and I know it's difficult.
It was tough this time with all of the growth.
Yeah.
And, Russ isn't here, but Russ was, cautioning, don't go too high. And I remember Byron and I were like, well, this seemed like a good kind of in the middle. It wasn't as high as we thought at first. It
Yeah.
wasn't as low as Russ wanted. I don't know, I blame Dan.
Well, there's two things that I'll comment on. Number one is typically when we do enrollment forecasting, you use a process called cohort survival. And cohort survival is a good technique. Basically, it says based on how many first graders become second graders and third graders become fourth graders the subsequent year. And that works fine as long as you have comparative data year over year. The problem is that COVID dropped a complete anomaly in the middle, and so there was not comparable data to where you can say those two years that were impacted by COVID, you really don't have data that you can use in a forecasting cohort model. So we had to go with just an estimated growth model, and the growth just didn't materialize. Secondly, we do have Flow Analytics, a professional service now that we're working with because the dynamics of our community, we're just not a sleepy little community anymore, and it's become much more sophisticated in trying to project those things.
I think Flow Analytics will help a lot.
I think, back to your question, Mike, we've always been really conservative, not, as you know, being on the board. I think in this particular case, going through cuts of staff is hard on everybody, and there was enough signs out there that there was a lot of growth happening. And there's still, in those homes up on the basin, there was a tremendous amount of young kids in those houses.
Yeah.
We lost an entire cohort of kindergartners up at Gold Bar, and there's really no growth happening up there at all. House here, house there. Our enrollment has grown up there in other areas, but we had to transfer a teacher, starting out with 3, and now we're at 2 kindergarten classes there. And so there's just a group of kindergartens didn't show. That's happened in Monroe, and it's happened in a couple other districts around. I don't know if parents are keeping their kids home longer, if there's some of the, the COVID hangover that people were frustrated with. Some of the, more people are making choices to do homeschool or private school. We got people going back and forth.
Sure.
Trying all kinds of different stuff out. And, but we're definitely growing. I mean, the groups of houses close in like lots of 6 or whatever, and depending on how many kids are, like the day before Thanksgiving, in this school alone, we enrolled 7 kids that day.
Have we studied any other districts that do it well? I know that when I was on the board, we were starting to think about that because,
Yeah.
I mean, we've missed it 2 out of 3 years. And that's pretty tough. I mean, that's 33%. So I would hope that as a district, we're looking at other places that are batting better than 33.
We've usually set it pretty flat. And so when we if you miss 10 or 15 up or down, I don't know how easy it is to get even closer than that. We
Sure.
budgeted for growth in this one, and we usually don't do that.
Yeah.
But there's just so much change that's occurred that it's hard to use ours. I have in the past taken a month, like April of the year before, and found that number to be pretty, not necessarily a real sophisticated method, but that number has sometimes equaled what we do in September. But, what Dan has done is he's taken literally how are the groups surviving from one year to the next? And there's a number of different factors that have come into play.
Yeah.
You know, that we're not accounting for very well, and so we took some of the impact fee money accumulating from these new homes and hired an agency that takes a really close look at birth rates. Birth rates in our area are actually up when you look at that thing compared to the other areas. There's some where they're way down. Nationwide, there's a trend down, because there's birth rates overall is down. You know, when the housing crisis occurred here, we were dropping 50 kids a year. And Seattle and some of these metropolitan areas were growing. It's kind of reversed the trend now. And so folks that live across the street from me in those new neighborhoods said, you know, I would have never thought of living in a place like this if I had to drive to Kirkland or Bellevue or Seattle every day. But since they only have to drive 2 days a week, I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, so, but you're correct. And so I think what my recommendation to the board would be, both fund balance and enrollment, was let's think about doing it flatter. You know, because we can't do this for too many times. But there was reasons to believe that growth would happen. It didn't. And, you know, the offset to that is you end up cutting staff, because that's our most expensive thing. And the way it worked out here is we essentially dropped 2 teachers at Gold Bar and added 2 teachers here, because this is the building under significant pressure.
Yeah.
Significant.
It'll be better this year.
That growth analysis, how accurate was it?
Pardon me?
The growth analysis that you had done,
Yeah.
how accurate was that? I mean, was it way off?
Well, it forecast for this year, so really, we did our own based on coming into this year, and so we just got it from them towards the end of the summer, and it's for the upcoming year. So over the 10-year period, they say we're gonna grow by 370 kids or something, over 10 years. And that's based on birth rate, based on looking at the number of homes being built, the developments that haven't yet happened, the number of kids that, you know, will take a sample of homes and they'll say, okay, how many kids in grades K-5 are there in these homes? How many 6, 8, how many 9, 12? And so there's a number of different factors. I will send you the report. You can
And we
take
can
a
go
look
over
at it.
that too in the onboarding.
Yeah, we can, yep.
Yeah, I was here for that board meeting,
Okay.
so I remember him going over it, but I was.
So that forecast is actually upcoming. This is our forecast.
Correct.
I am responsible.
So there's 2 different forecasts.
I think the differential percentages, as I recall them, at Gold Bar, like I said, because the cohort data was not comparable year over year, we could not use it for the traditional forecasting model. So we went to an estimated growth model. Gold Bar, we set it 0 at flat, because we had looked back 10 years, and essentially the population really had not changed appreciably in 10 years. This building, we put 3% was my recollection, middle school at +2, and high school at +2. Well, as Dan talked about, our kindergarten class up at Gold Bar was very, very small. Smallest class we've had in 10 years up there. So not only did they not stay flat, they declined at that building. The growth here, the 3% growth, did not materialize. Middle school were pretty close. High school was, that 2% growth was based on the fact that we had a very large 8th grade class that was matriculating in 9th grade relative to a small senior class. So that growth was gonna kind of be organic, just based on the fact that you had a large 8th grade class going and becoming freshmen compared to a small senior class exiting out of the system. But again, this did not materialize.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, approval of adoption of K-5 mathematics curriculum.
Good evening, directors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come. I apologize last time I had the crud that was going around, and so I know that this is the second read, but we have some new folks, or I guess new to this part. So in the packet, you'll actually see the process that we've used to really look at the best available pieces. So I want to make sure that you don't have any questions, and then we'll proceed, and there's some decisions that can be made. So we started out with 12 different curriculum options, and within probably the first hour, we were able to pull 7 of those off the list. So these were all top-rated curricula. And so getting it down to 5, and then we actually dropped it down to 3 by the second meeting. And so and that was in 22-23. So as we moved into this year, we started with pilot, in both elementaries, we had 4 teachers in each building that looked at the pilot, and then the instructional materials review committee came back together and we reviewed all of the data. And so we do it numerically. They have to do little buttons that they choose, and then they actually have all the comments, and I've included all of the types of comments. So that we have pilot teachers that comment on the 2 different curricula, and we have peer teachers, meaning those that are working in this particular building. I know that 4th grade actually had everyone try some lessons from both different, from both curricula. And we had 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in each building looking at it. And then we looked at the student comments, and you'll see all of those in your packet. So the final recommendation was that we go with Curriculum Associates iReady Classroom. And there was a great alignment with our progress monitoring and our universal screener that we use in the elementaries. And so the belief of the committee was that those 2 aligned, and we were down to 2 very good curriculums. They were both highly rated. The other one would have given us a K-12 continuum, but the overwhelming response was that the iReady was a better fit for the students. So you'll also see in the background, after the background information, I've given you kind of a breakdown of cost. It's on page 3. And I also have, so there's a final number there. We are working with Foundry 10 again to see if they will help us with the manipulatives. We haven't heard back from them, but we did submit one of the manipulatives was one of 3 proposals that we sent in to them. And so the total cost for K-5 adoption is $248,000. And we've actually asked the publishers to give us their very best price. And this price has been shaved off by about 50 from our original ask from them. And we've been very clear about what is needed, and so we're doing that. So I wanted to, I said thank you to Cindy earlier. She started on the committee as the board rep. Gigi, when she was voted in, she joined us. She had been with us for several times, so a year at least before that, and so it's been nice to have board representation, and I think we've had lots of conversations about the process. Just so, Dave, you know that we have parents, we have community members, and then we have teachers and administrators all on the committee. And we run fairly good, I mean, they get pretty good at going through all the process, and people find it's a great way for them to be part of the decision. And then the decisions are always, we bring you the options, and then you are the ones that get to make the decisions. So I will have any questions?
Byron, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Questions?
Am I understanding it correctly that between the 2 grade schools, it's about 184,000?
No, it's
248.
248.
248. 248,000.
Yes.
And based on our current budget issue, what's the time frame that we're looking at?
That's something that you get to struggle with. We need new curriculum now, but we also know that in a budget crunch situation, there's things that you as board members need to deal with. I know that when Dan did his presentation, postponing curriculum adoption was right on the top of it. But in all fairness, I need to bring it to you in its timeliness of when it was done, and that's why I'm here.
So we can, yeah, we'll approve it or
Yes.
not, and then we deal with how do we pay for it.
So-
Approve the adoption.
Yes.
Yeah. So-
Or not.
Yes. So-
And then how do we pay for it?
Yeah, to adopt or not, and then how we want to possibly buy partial and do a partial. We've done that with, we did that with our ELA curriculum that's in the elementary. We had to do two grades at a time, and so that's how we did that, and that was now 7 or 8 years ago. We were still trying to get all of that bought at the time, and that was just the way we had to do it.
That's the current curriculum?
That is the current ELA curriculum, the English Language Arts curriculum, the Fontes Pinnell, which is the, and it's a material rich, it's the Fontes Pinnell classroom, but it also aligns with our intervention programs, which is the level literacy interventions.
Now, one of the comments I would make is, you know, I remember this from when Mike came on the board. One of the things we went without for a long time that always gets kicked to the curb is curriculum adoption. And that's a problem in my mind, you know, and so how do we make that the number one priority? That learning is really the number one priority.
So we're concerned with our test scores, and how are you gonna get good test scores if we don't have good curriculum? That needs to be up there with teachers.
The professional development package that comes with this is quite intensive. So in years 1 and 2, there are three major professional learning opportunities for all of our teachers. And then years 3 and 4, it's 2, and then 5 and 6. And the one that they keep is they always allow us to run the new people through. So, and typically when I do PD, we try to have them recorded, so if we do get new staff, we can actually have that in-house. So we try to work with that.
Is that figured into the cost?
That is figured into the cost. For it's a 6-year adoption, so there's all sorts of ways that we can start negotiating. We can negotiate, so really what I think is probably adoption or not, and then the discussion becomes how do we purchase and when do we purchase? And fully understand that we are in a budget crunch. We all have to look at that, so I'm advocating for you, and the team wants me to share that we've gone through a process that is very vetted and very clear. We have, Cameron, you're probably using ELA and or math in the high school that has been adopted in the last 4 years.
And that's one of the things we did do during the whole pandemic part, is we adopted a significant amount of curriculum.
Yes.
But elementary math is a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, we did. We used a portion of our ESSER proceeds to purchase some curriculum. Dan is correct. We haven't done a lot of curriculum over the years. I want to say, just supporting what Mike said, I think the curriculum certainly is a very needed expenditure. Please don't take what my analysis has up there as trying to diminish the work that they've done or the importance of this. But the figures that I showed you do not include that expenditure.
So yeah, right now we just need to, do we want to adopt the curriculum, or do we not want to adopt the curriculum?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the curriculum with the assumption that that's not an approval to make the purchase.
It's not.
It clearly states, adopt the curriculum. I made sure my words were exact
Perfect.
for
Thank
all
you.
of us.
And I'm making sure my words are exact too.
Before we do that though, Cameron, do you have questions or comments?
No.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the mathematics curriculum. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we have adopted it.
Okay, and then we'll let you kind of struggle
So I
with
think this is our only December meeting. I think that in January, we need to bring back some recommendation or some.
Give us a couple choices.
There's a, you know, you can do nothing, that's one. You could do a third of it, K1 or 2-3 or 4-5. We can explore other financial options. We can work with the company to try to figure out how to do this. These are significant challenges because this curriculum is not cheap.
So the number that's in here is the total number. So if we chose, and I actually have bids for 2 grade levels or 3 grade levels at a time.
Which we have done
So,
because it's so significant.
I just asked them to give me everything, but I gave you the total. So at that point, the 248 would be K5. And that would be one adoption, and we would then have everyone trained at the same time. If not, then we have to do the rolling training also.
My
So.
personal preference would be all at once, but we'll have to do it. So I think we would probably like to see what, if that's kind of on the, you know, the chopping block there.
Sure.
What can we cut in place of curriculum? Because curriculum is important. So what else can we cut back on besides curriculum in order to have those funds to?
So we're hoping to hear from Foundry 10, which would help with the manipulative of this. And then we could look, and I can give you the different sets of costs involved. But thank you for
That'd be
the
great.
adoption, and we'll communicate with our team tomorrow and let them know. So
Thank you. All right, approval of athletics classifications.
Will you stop?
So this is where we're outside of the 1A classification now. We've grown, and, but we're not significantly out of it. So there's a kind of a conundrum to figure out. Do you apply for Kinko Conference acceptance, or do you petition to stay in 1A? And that's part of what this discussion's about, so.
All right, so Scott, who's gonna? tell
I'm
us
here,
what's
can
going
you hear me?
on? Yeah.
Okay, so about 8 years ago, the classification process through the WIA comes up every 4 years. The cycle, what it does is it counts from the public schools. Private schools have a different process, but they still have the same number of kids that they have to report. Public schools start their school attendance from 9th grade to 11th grade, from January through May gets recorded, and then they'll count October 1st and November 1st, but they double November's enrollment count, and that gets your window of enrollment. And so this last week they finalized the numbers, and we finished at 466. Our direct certification is listed at 0.31. The direct certification is now taking the place of what previously was when schools reported their free and reduced lunch percentages. And that was one of the first drivers that brought us from a 2A school down to a 1A school 8 years ago. But especially with COVID, all of that free and reduced lunch changed a lot, and so they've set that aside. And so the way that they want to capture the socioeconomic impact on schools is using direct certification. Ours is, like I mentioned, 31%. The state average is 35%. So there is no impact or multiplier against our enrollment, which is 466. The line dividing 1A and 2A is 450. We right now are the third smallest 2A listed at 466. And there's a significant gap between where we are and the bottom end of most other 2A schools. So going into this, starting this process back in the spring, and then once they reported the initial numbers, and we were a 2A back when we got to June, the WIA has said that any school that ends up impacted could appeal. Now, we have not gone through the appeal process because we've either been a 2A school, and that's what it's been, or we were significantly under that line and we were a 1A school. But other schools around us have gone through the appeal process and were fractions off of being down a classification and were denied. And that's Granite Falls a few years ago, and it was Coopville a few years ago. So I know that while we have to go through the appeal process, and they said that they're going to be more liberal with the determinations, it isn't a guarantee that if we chose the best path for us is to remain a 1A, to remain a 1A. It's possible that we could be denied by the WIA. We would have to declare our intent to appeal to be 1A by December 22nd. We have to submit all of our evidence by, I believe, January 5th. They would hear it on January 18th or 19th, and then they make their final determinations for classifications across the board by the 21st of January. So things are going to be moving fast. Now, we are a 2A right now. And we also, when we joined the Cascade or helped form the Emerald Sound Conference, we moved into District 2 in the WIA 9 districts. And so as a 2A school in District 2, there are two leagues where 2As have been competing. The Metro League, which is mostly Seattle area, and those schools, for the most part, are all private schools. And then you have the KingCo, which is made up of 25 schools. That's up and down the I-5, the 405 corridor. We have been competing with non-league games in football, basketball, baseball, volleyball with KingCo over the last few years, and competitively we've matched up pretty well. I can tell you that the relationships that I have with the athletic directors in KingCo have been pretty positive as well. So I know that is an avenue. I had reached out and was hoping to connect with the president again before tonight's meeting, and her day got away from her, and so we're going to connect again tomorrow. But I also know, prior to joining the Emerald Sound Conference, we were historically and always had been in District 1. Snohomish County, Skagit, and Whatcom counties, along with Island counties, are in District 1 on the map. So while we are a District 2 school, geographically we look like we're a District 1 school. And Westco, which does have multi-classification, they have 4A, 3A, 2A schools. They also have reached out knowing that we might, as a 2A school, need a home to be. And I believe we would be welcome there. I have been talking with small groups of people, with coaches specifically about this. And one of the things that, where the coaches are looking, a few things that come up. At the 1A level in our league, we are one school. There are 3 public schools. We are one of them. There are 14 schools in our league. 10 of them are private. At the state level, as far as schools that advance to state, when you look across the board at all of the classifications, the percentage of schools that advance to state at the 1A level is significantly higher with private schools than the other classifications. So there are some concerns that remaining a 1A school, we're still going up against schools that are private schools that have different opportunities, different means, different socioeconomic statuses, because they have the means to be able to afford private schools. That said, KingCo is larger. They also even the 2A schools are in areas that the kids do have different opportunities. So it's not necessarily going to be easier. We still are going to need to do everything we can within our programs to compete. Believe the underlying thing that we all want is we want our kids to have good experiences. Good experiences result with having competitive regular seasons, because if you can compete and you know that you're going to be able to compete going into the season, kids will buy into what it takes to do outside of the season, going to open gyms, going to the weight room to lift, going to open fields if we have like soccer practices, etc. They're willing to commit to those things when they feel like they know that they're going to have a positive return on their investment. And I believe that the coaches feel that if we were to be a 2A school in KingCo, that we would find a way to compete. KingCo is also going through some thoughts about when we started the Emerald Sound Conference. It was based on the idea of competitive balance. A lot of our with 14 schools, we could have 2 divisions: a Chinook division, which is more competitive, getting teams ready for state level competitions if they can get there, and then the Coho division that allows for teams to rebuild and build some successes and get there. And over the 4 years that we've been in the Emerald Sound Conference, all of our team sports that have been in those 2 divisions have moved up from Coho into Chinook, with one exception. So we see growth across the board, and it's been a good experience. And if we were to remain in a 1A school in Emerald Sound, we would continue to compete. It's been a good competitive league, but like anything else, it has had some challenges.
So what's your recommendation after talking to the coaches and What do you recommend?
Well, I agree with Dan. I think that there's two things that we should pursue, just to cover our bases. I do believe that we should appeal to be a 1A school, but I also know that there is, listening to coaches, if we are a 2A school and we are accepted to participate and join the KingCo conference, I think that we would not be in over our head competitively. I mean, there'd be maybe different sports or different teams, different nights that we might have some gaps, but I think that overall the experience would be good. So I believe we should apply to both of those. Now, the WIA has said that if we do apply to be a 1A school and they grant us that we are a 1A school. So even if we're accepted in KingCo, we would not be a 1A school in KingCo. So it would, KingCo would be if we're a 2A school, and if we're a 1A school, we would remain in the Emerald Sound Conference.
So would we apply to be a 1A school first, and then if we don't get that, then?
The timelines don't really, and that's one of the things that I wanted to connect with the president of KingCo today. Their deadlines for application, they have, the deadline is applying in February, which is way too late for when everybody, once they release the final classification numbers on January 21st, there'll be a little bit of schools that maybe have to do a little bit of tweaking with the league that they might be in, but for the most part, most people want to already have those plans set and be able to start putting together their league schedules so then they can fill in their non-league schedules. Football is probably the biggest driver for that as well. And the other thing is, let's say we applied to KingCo, got denied, and we're denied being able to be a 1A school by the WIA, we would be a 2A school without a home. The Emerald Sound Conference is a 1A league. They, at present, the mindset of the league is not to change to make it a multi-classification league, which would allow Sultan to stay in that league as a 2A. It still wouldn't be ideal when we would be the only 2A in that league, and then we'd have to have a playoff path with other schools that are in different leagues. But that at least would be something to consider. But based on the initial plans, if we are a 2A school, we would not be in the Emerald Sound Conference, and we would be looking, and that might be, then the fallback plan could be returning to District 1 and trying to work with Wesco.
Scott, I've got a question.
Absolutely.
So grades 9 through 11 were 466, correct?
Yes.
Which is 16 over the threshold. What is
Yes.
what is the high to low span in 2A? If I remember right, it goes up to almost 1,200.
Yeah, give me a second, I gotta just pull that up on my screen.
And that's my concern.
So the 2A is, the smallest 2A is 450, the largest 2A is 899.
Okay,
So we'd be a small 2A. Now, granted, I do recall when we were a 2A school, I think the last year of being a 2A school, we went and played a playoff game against Linden that year, and we were the second, or the smallest 2A school. We went up and had a football playoff game at Linden, and I believe we might have lost 40-something to 20. We scored the most points against Linden during that postseason. I think they threw up a bunch of shutouts in the next 3 weeks. And so I know that it felt good to look back and say, well, I know that was a rough night, but we competitively, we lost to a really strong team, and we put 20 points on the board.
So the other thing that I don't fully understand that I think we need to talk about is the direct cert. He used a number called 31%, said 31% free and reduced. This year we're over 50%, but that's not just direct cert. And so I don't, that's, in my mind, that number is misleading, because we're on track to be over 50% again next year, or close to it. Direct cert is those kids that qualify directly through DSHS, et cetera, however that direct cert works. I don't know why they're doing it the way they're doing it, but that would be one of the ways to, I think, bring in the socioeconomic impact to that. You know, on the other side of the coin, didn't we play Sammamish this year in football?
Yes, we did.
And we beat them. They're in the
Yes.
Kinko.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I just really don't want to go to the days where we were lining up against Archbishop Murphy, who currently has 2 starters in the NFL right now. No interest in that at all.
So this is something we need to decide tonight because the deadlines are coming up.
That's why we put it through, just because, that it's December 22nd, you said? Yeah.
The
Just read what
22nd is when we have to make sure that our intent to appeal is in. The data is due on January 5th. And, and that's, and Dan, as you said, I think that we would have a pretty strong case to be able to justify that we would be a 1A. Some of the other factors that they would say is we're not dominating at the state level. There are some schools that, based on enrollment and socioeconomic, like Toppenish High School, has been dominating state tournament because they've been able to play down and have done very well with that. We've gotten our girls basketball team to state last year. That's in this window of time since we've been in 1A, that's the window. When our boys went to state, we were a 2A school back then. So we're not necessarily dominating at that level. So our league would be in support of us staying a 1A and continuing in. So I think that we've got, if that is our biggest drive, that we want to be a 1A school, we should be able to sell that, and I believe that we would be able to be a 1A. If we feel like our drive is we're growing, we are a 2A now, and if we were to able to join the Kinko conference and compete with the other 2A schools for postseason, compete against school, the Kinko is going to take their 24 schools that they presently have and put them into 4 different divisions, pods, based on competitive strength of programs. And so my guess is that we would be where Sultan would be if we were accepted. We'd be in one of those pods that would feature most of the 2As, and we've done well with those in the non-league experiences that we've had. So I think that we would have successful regular seasons in that and be able to build and go that path.
So Scott, if you were looking down the road in your crystal ball next year,
Yeah.
where would we be considering possible growth that we're looking at?
Well, to be honest, I say that next year we would probably be a 1A school in the Emerald Sound Conference.
Well, I'd like to let's Cameron, because this directly affects you as an athlete. What are your thoughts?
I honestly think going to a 2A is risky just because we could be a 1A tomorrow. We are barely a 2A, barely by 6 kids, and those kids could be all of a sudden drop out and leave. And yes, we've been competitive with some 2As, but not enough to all of a sudden change. And if the fact is we are not really competitive in state yet at all, and I feel going to a whole nother conference to do that, I don't see that really possible yet for us. Not yet, at least. Not now.
Byron, what do you have to say?
I think if where we're at, we're competitive. I just, as a former coach, I'd like to stay away from private schools any way possible because they have such an advantage over us. And like she said, boy, we're barely a 2A, and boy, that many more kids is such an advantage too. And man, I would hate to jump up to a 2A and then just, now we're facing these schools that have 5 times the amount of kids to choose from.
And I think we're at 2A now, so we want to appeal to go back to 1A, correct?
That would be, yeah. So based on the last release, the final numbers that were released, we are a 2A school. So if we were to be a 1A, we have to appeal and be granted that by the WIA.
From what I've heard, I'm leaning towards going to appeal to be a 1A. Mary Ann, I haven't heard from you yet.
I do have a question, do we pay dues? And if so, what are our dues as a 1A compared to a 2A?
I can tell you that the cost of billing does go up with the higher classifications. So 1A schools generally pay a different level than 2A schools. So there would be an increase in some fees that go to the WIA. Those fees are going to be consistent. I don't know what the dues for KingCo is directly. I do know that the dues that we pay Emerald Sound have been significant, and that we keep looking at that as maybe next year reducing it, but it hasn't been reduced yet.
Does anyone have any concerns with appealing to go to a 1A?
I'm supportive of going back to a 1A. Having had a football player, wrestler, student athlete at Sultan High School, I spent a lot of time in doctor's appointments from injuries, and so I would like to stay away from those private big teams, yes.
So can we get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the appeal going for the 1A status.
Okay. Knowing that we are a 2A and that the appeal is not a guarantee, are we also in support of applying to KingCo?
Let's do one at a time. So we've got a
We
motion.
can't. The timing does not allow for
No,
that.
I meant we have
Separate
to
motions.
vote. We have to do separate votes.
Okay.
So
All right.
we have the motion to go to appeal from being a 2A to a 1A. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then the next one, Scott, would be,
Applying to KingCo. Another fun fact, Cedar Crest High School has been in Westco, and they are going through the same process, and their coaches and their community input is leaning towards reaching out and applying to go to KingCo as well. So that could be a positive factor for us in that we would have a neighbor that would also be there, because most of the other 2A schools that are in KingCo are in the Renton-Tequila neighborhood.
Sarita, do you have, I forgot you're back there, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, just keep in mind, you guys said you didn't want private schools, but remember, 1A, where our current is majority of private schools. There's only 3 public schools in our current league.
Yeah,
So
and you
just
said-
want you to keep that in mind as you do, we think through that. Granted, they're not large, but there's some discrepancy, there's still private schools.
Yeah.
Is
So-
it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So that is, that's one thing to be thinking of. When we move to a 2A, you are getting into larger schools. They are gonna have more opportunities. They're gonna pull kids because they're gonna have a bigger pool to pull from. They're gonna have some opportunities as well. So, I mean, it's a tough call right now.
Yeah.
But I know we hear from our coaches, former coaches, current coaches, that they're tired of playing private schools. We hear from our athletes, we're tired of playing students that go to a private school because of, a variety of different things. But-
Is the private school association more have to do with the Archbishop Murphys?
No.
No, it's just private, period.
Private, especially with players we play. It's more students when they, especially like no offense to Kings, but Kings for example, they are very, especially the students are very, kiss my ring very much, I'm better with you and I'm gonna be that way towards you. They're very like that. And that's rough, but they're also good. And we sometimes compete, we sometimes don't with them. And so I feel like that would be
Kind
down.
of, I associate them closer to Archbishop Murphy than some of these other ones. But that's just me, and my experience, and
Well, we already voted to appeal our 2A status to go to a 1A, so now we need to decide if we want to also make a motion to try to get into KingCo. Correct?
and that would
Yes.
be if the appeal is denied.
Well, in tandem, I thought we were gonna,
We have to do both.
Yeah.
so I make a motion to pursue Kingco in the 2A classification tandemly as we appeal the 1A.
We have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, make it happen, Scott.
All right, we'll work on that.
Let us
Thank
know
you
how
very
that
much.
works out.
Appreciate it.
It's like, yeah. Okay, now we have approval of Sky Valley Tree Service and Landscape at GBA. Dan, is that you?
Yeah, to give you some background on this, there's a lot that the school district owns that is probably 25 to 50 yards behind the fence that is on the north end of the GBE campus. It's got a significant amount of trees on it that have, well, last year we had a big problem. If you remember the freeze, we had a gold bar, there were several trees that came down, et cetera. And so the recommendation, you can see that the gentleman's estimate here is to cut them down. Cost is a little over $14,000. Estimate is that we can sell about $7,500 to $9,000 worth of timber, and so our cost actually is reasonable for clearing a lot. And the concern is the neighbors on both the east and the west of that property. Because last year we had a couple of our trees went over a house, former board member, and those trees have gotten large, and that's why they've got some value. They're fir and maple, and try to keep our cost as cost neutral as we can. So I attached all of the individual, his licensing, Small Works roster, his business license. Charlie's vetted it all, and I recommend that you approve it.
What questions do you guys have? Dave, any questions?
Well, I was wondering the end goal there, but he just answered that. I guess it's because of safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't, the district has owned it forever. I'm not sure at what point that it acquired the property. I don't know what we would put on it. It's more of a lot that I think probably came in the transaction whenever the property that Gold Bar is currently on, and Gold Bar was built in 1993, may have been part of that, because there's two lots back there that we own. One of them has timber on it. The other one is pretty flat.
But this is, the net result's gonna be about, what, $7,000 cost, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
this is $16,000 here, and they're saying 7,500 in trees, so we got a bit of a loss there.
Yes.
Is it just a few trees around the perimeter, or is it the whole lot?
There's quite a few. I don't know the exact number, but he figures 3 loads, 3 logging trucks.
Have you walked this property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had it assessed. We've got the properties, we had the, all of the boundaries are all laid out, the whole thing, and so.
And we did have tree fall on somebody's house.
Right, and after it's logged, then who cleans up all the brush and stuff? Or we
It
just leave
stays, it
Just leave it?
stays, yeah, this is a safety issue, it's not a beautification issue or anything like that, and so it, there's several species of trees, some are not very tall, and they wouldn't be part of this cut down, but some are, my guess is 80 to 100 feet, pretty tall, pretty good sized trees.
Byron, any questions?
As an example, I'll just ask Dan, do you remember, we cut these 2 trees down out here a year or 2 ago. Gold Bar, we did some work because a number of those trees on campus, and I think we spent $20,000 plus on each one of those. And so the initial price was good, and then being able to sell some of the timber took it down. 7,000 is still a lot.
Yeah.
But, we floated, we had, the pipes froze at Gold Bar, we had all kinds of issues through this one storm, and so not knowing what the future holds, as far as freezing, thawing, wind blowing, all those kinds of things. Even on the right over the fence to the immediate north of the Gold Bar property, some of those trees have gotten huge. And,
Mary Ann, do you have any questions?
I do. What fund would this come out of? General fund or capital fund?
Probably the capital projects fund, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, we could put it in capital.
And then, do we usually go out and get, what, 3 bids or something like that, or how's
Yeah,
that work here?
we usually do. This person is on our small works roster. I don't have to in that
I
case.
see, okay.
The cost was less than doing less work here. We had these 2 willows, I think they were, cut down last year, and it really has made an eyesore, but they were a significant safety issue. And we spent a lot getting those down from a different vendor, and so looking at this cost and the person had all the stuff in place, I didn't get additional ones. But it's a fair question, it's a good business practice to get more than one, but in this case, I looked at the cost and felt like this is a pretty good deal compared to what we've done previously.
Did you have any more questions, Mary Ann?
Oh, I had many, but not regarding this, no.
Cameron?
Nope.
Anybody have any other concerns or? So can we get a motion to approve Sky Valley Tree Service in landscape for lot by Gold Bar Elementary?
I make a motion to approve that, but only if it's coming out of the capital fund.
Do you have a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, let's move on. Approval of pro-con statement committee members.
So this is a requirement when you're running a levy or a bond, is that the district advertises and puts out for a committee that would be in favor of the bond and a committee that would be opposed to the bond. And so it's been posted for several weeks. I think you put it out on social media as well, on social media. Nobody emerged from the con committee or the opposed committee. That is the group that is part of the pro committee. And Mike Burnell, who's here, is on that pro committee, as well as 2 other citizens.
So are we approving just the members, or I thought we were gonna approve the statement?
Not the statement.
Okay, just the
So
members.
how this works is that, yes, you're approving just the individuals who will be writing the statements. The county then, I will take those forms tomorrow, I will take them over to the county and file them. The county will reach out to the individuals on that approved list, and they will work directly with those individuals. The district does not get to see the statement in advance of it publishing in the voters pamphlet. So once you are done approving the people, basically we are done with the process. The county will work with those individuals at that point.
And we did the same thing on capital levy,
Yeah.
same exact process. And there was a pro committee and a con committee at that. And the con committee, some guy out of Everett was he put a con one in for everybody, I think, is what he did.
So Mike, you know you're gonna write a really, really good one, right?
All done.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody has questions on this one, do we?
No, I'm just looking, it's Marcy Osborne, Kathleen Butler.
Yeah,
Katie,
Kate
I think her
Butler.
name is. What is it?
She put her legal name.
Oh, put her legal name, gotcha.
Okay, and Michael Varnell, okay.
So do we have a motion to approve the pro-con statement committee members, which is only the pro committee members?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, I didn't wanna be the only one.
Okay.
We have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Thanks, Mike, for doing that, appreciate it. Approval of Gold Bar and SES 5th grade camp at Cedar Springs.
So this is a trip they've taken, for several years, I think absent or minus the year that COVID was part of the deal. This is paid for by a grant now, and so there's not a cost to the district. We used to do pizza sales and various fundraisers, but there is a grant that funded this thing and more last year, and the same grant has been received for this year. So I recommend that you approve.
I make a motion to recommend we approve this. That's incredible. I'm pretty sure that us parents paid for it back when my kids were in grade school.
Does anybody have any questions before we do that?
Well, I noticed the cost on it, right, as per student and per,
Chaperone or-
chaperone basis, right? And my wife their district pays different costs.
Huh.
It's like $20 difference, so I was wondering
Same
why
place?
yeah, same place, same 3-day course, so I was
Maybe we
wondering
get
why
better
we're
food.
paying more.
Maybe we get better food.
Better
I don't know.
accommodations.
I think,
But,
I think we'll be
I'll
able to
approve it, but I wonder why.
The number of students, probably if there's like up to 100, then it's this much, over 100.
I
so-
don't know, but
Yeah.
it's a question, so.
Well, as
We
long as
don't
the
have an
grant is
answer to it,
paid
I
for
guess.
it, I think we're good. So we have a motion to approve, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Approval of, where are we at? The personnel, let's see, the personnel action report. Yes. Anybody have any questions on that? It's mostly stipends, it looks like,
Wait, this is which?
the PAR.
Okay.
personnel action report, this is all part of the tech, these are tech ambassadors, and it's all part of the tech levy.
Anyone have questions? No? Do we have a motion to approve the personnel action report?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. We have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're good. Approval of Perkins grant.
That's me.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
It's all right. I'm Carissa Kelly. For those of you that don't know me, I'm here as the CTE director at Sultan School District, specifically Sultan High School. Every year we get the Perkins grant. This year it's a little bit more. They said don't expect it. Normally we get 10 to 13,000 a year. This year they're at 22,700, so quite a bump. We're up to almost 180 FTE for our CTE classes. So that's anywhere from business to ag to health science. We have a career exploration all freshmen take. We have STEM classes, and so we're growing down into the middle school starting second semester. With the bump in this money, our business and skilled and technical computer classes are having computers that are probably almost 10 years old. And so with this extra money, we're going to get all new computers for our 2 classrooms, for our business and for our visual communications and those kind of classes, computer programming classes. The other stuff will go to trying to increase certifications for students. We have 3 classes that are dual credit with EVCC, and that's $50 a student. But we know with 50+% of our students being free and reduced lunch, part of our Perkins is I do pay for those for them, so that is not a barrier for them. Our college and the high school classes have now been paid for through legislative, but dual credit is still not fully funded by the state, so I use part of Perkins to do that. And any other certificates, our whole program is we want to grow so kids have those certificates that they can go straight into the workforce, and our teachers are doing really awesome things. We've partnered with Red Pepper and then all the HOSA leadership things that are happening, so.
That's awesome to get extra money.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll take any extra money we can get.
Exactly.
I apologize for putting you, we're so late on the agenda.
That's fine.
We'll
Only
fix
have to
that
drive
next
home to Stanwood, no big deal.
That's the way it is.
It is a ways.
That's where my brother lives, and I think I've got to drive this far to go visit, you know. That's a
Anybody
ways.
have any questions, comments on this? I think obviously it's a no-brainer, so.
I'm really sorry. I didn't-
No, you're fine, Dan.
Can we get a motion to approve the Perkins grant?
Motion to approve the Perkins grant.
We have a motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Alright. Discussion of new board member onboarding dates. Dan?
Yeah, so I think I sent them, so looking at January 3rd and 4th, this would be a schedule of what a day might look like in trying to get, new board members. In this case, for the January 3rd and 4th, it would just be Dave and Mary Ann, correct? And,
Yes.
And I'm trying to, set up a time to meet with each of the school principals and go to the schools and kind of see what that all is about, and maybe visit some classrooms, We only have a half hour for those, but Nevertheless, give you a chance to meet with Dan Ballard and go through a financial overview, teaching and learning with Mike, Maren, do some board docs training, superintendent, board president, just talk about answer any questions you can in a setting where we just sit there and talk about that and not have, the focus be many different things.
Are you two available? Are those dates okay?
I'll be available, yeah.
Yeah, January 4th is my son's birthday, but it looks like we'll be out by
Short.
11:45, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
if we're out by noon, that'll be fine.
Okay,
That works.
awesome. WASDA board retreat dates. Byron, have you heard anything about when your,
End of January.
end of January?
Last week of January.
Okay,
That's when you go to Japan?
Yes.
thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
So, Dan, Kayla, do you guys want to try to get some dates? This is for, we're gonna have someone from WASDA come up and do kind of like the board boot camp, but throw in some other stuff with it on how to, help us be a cohesive board that can work together and get a lot accomplished. So it would be like a 4-hour thing we were looking at, thinking maybe even doing, say, like a 4 to 8 or a 3 to 7 or something like that, so it wouldn't be all during the workday. Is there something, like a time, Byron, that would work better for you?
Later.
Okay.
Usually, yeah, I'd have to get off early even to get here at 4, but they owe me, so.
Are there any-
Trying to do it so it doesn't eat up a whole day, but it's so important to spend time together, getting to know how this all works, getting to know each other, getting to know the various policies that apply to board members. And frankly, at the time, we haven't always done the best job of this part of it. And part of it's been desire. And I think sometimes when we don't do this, it shows in ways. The board plays a critical role in the learning that takes place, and the commitments to learning and the various things that happen.
And just knowing what it means to be a board member and what our role is important, and this way we can all, do it together and learn a lot. Are there any days that you guys cannot do in January? Or maybe Kayla, do you want to send out a poll and try to find a couple dates that we can submit to Tricia? Okay. So she'll send that out, and then if you guys can just respond as quickly as possible.
How long are you going for?
Like a week, a little over a week.
When's your trip, Byron?
End of January, like the 27th to like the 4th or 5th.
Okay. And I'm going to Mazatlan, January 6th to the 15th.
So it's 15th to the 20th. You said 27th?
Yeah, like 27th of January to like,
So
maybe between the
16th to the
15th.
23rd or something like that.
And then if you can send that to Cameron also, Kayla.
Okay.
So we can get her involved.
And if that doesn't work, then we would go into February.
Yeah,
And that might be worth consideration since we've got a vacant spot.
yeah, that's something, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look at that too.
I'm going to Mazatlan when, sorry.
January 6th to the 15th.
Thank you.
I'm going to Tenasserim.
Ticket there.
Can ask. What?
You got an extra ticket.
I'm going to Hawaii tomorrow, so we need to hurry up and finish, so I can
Oh,
pack.
this is true.
Board retreat, Day on the Hill.
So the Day on the Hill is the legislative conference down in Olympia. Usually we would leave on a Sunday, 10 or 11. It's for board directors to interact with local legislators. That occurs Monday. Usually there's speakers on Sunday afternoon, and it's been kind of the one thing we've traditionally done, and I think it's informational. It's a short session this year. I don't know what exactly they have in store, but it's your chance to get to see sort of how the legislative process works with school boards. And so we will go visit Carolyn Eslick and Sam Lowe and Senator
Brad.
Brad Hawkins, yeah, so we've got District 112 now, so it's kind of doubled in size. And so we'll have Mike Steele, Brad Hawkins, I can't think, there's 6 of them now. We used to see 3. That'll be interesting to see how that works. Since they've split Sultan is basically split in 2.
And this year it's the 28th and the 29th. So Sunday the 28th, we would go down, stay the night, or stay the night.
February?
January.
January 28th.
28th and 29th. Byron will be
gone.
gone. Can the rest of you guys do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Cameron?
Yeah.
So then let's also look at a different hotel than we were at last time.
Where were we?
Says the Olympia Hotel on the thing.
Yeah, it was, what hotel we were at last time was kind of not.
There's no ghosts. The Ghostbusters were there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That was something.
All right, well, awesome, so we'll get at least most of us there. Suicide Procedure Edition, Policy 2145.
Good evening, directors.
Somebody else to talk.
Yeah. And Dan, I'm waiting for that apology.
Making
When
him
is
stay.
late?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't seem sincere, but that's okay.
It really is.
I'm just giving you a hard time. So the reason I brought this one up is our counselors have worked pretty hard on addressing a common suicide process. I think last year what I wrote into the packet is we had a situation last year, shortly after we had the unfortunate incident of a child that took her life in January last year. We had a situation where another student was having suicide ideations, and we had no one on staff that could administer the screening because they weren't trained in that process. And so through that discussion, our counselors have come up with a consistent process with consistent paperwork that we can use district-wide through all schools, K through 12. And so they've brought this paperwork to me. I've reviewed it with them. It is very sound. It matches what many of our social workers in industry use to identify whether or not a child is at risk, and if they are at risk, what are the plans that we need to put in place to provide support for them, both in school and then what to do if there is a need outside of school to address their concerns.
And this is just informative for us, right?
It's just
Yeah.
informative. We'll add it to procedure. It doesn't need board approval, but I thought it was important for the board to know, based on the incident that we had last year, that we
Is there
learned from that.
training that goes along with that? I mean, in a crisis situation, you don't have to be reading paperwork, right?
Right, exactly. So the counselors have an opportunity every year to take suicide. There is a suicide prevention training offered through our ESD. Most of them signed up for the course this year. We sent that information out in September. I think that course was in October. They get their credits for it. So like in industry, it's their CU credits. For us, it's clock hour credits. So, and they're required under their certificate to do that, so to stay updated. And then, like I said, they were all, yeah, and like I said, they were all part of developing this, so.
Good.
It's a win-win all the way around on that, so.
And we're part of Forefront. We're a member district that's part of the University of Washington, suicide prevention, Forefront suicide prevention.
We should send this out to our mental health advisory committee also, because I think everyone would really like to see that.
Right, and I believe the counselors would like to present this to our administrators so that they can go through the paperwork and do some brief training with them as well.
That's great.
Just informational. But yes, we'll
Questions
get
or
it.
comments, anybody?
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I'm Paul Douglas.
Paul, okay. Nice to meet you, Paul.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Paul,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I think I'm up here for the other thing too.
Okay, so just stay there. Review of policy and procedure 3114 homeschool.
And I bring this one up, nothing has changed since this latest edition from WASDA around this policy. What has changed, so for Washington State home-based instruction, the bottom line with that is it's local control. The state has mainly put all accountability on the local LEA to enforce homeschool. Dan is our contact in our district for any employee or any, not employee, but any family that would like to homeschool their child. They need to go through Dan in order to get that approval. And there's requirements that say that, you know, you have to have 45 college credit hours in order to homeschool your child. There's requirements around connecting with a certified teacher if you don't have it, and what curriculum that you use. And right now we have about 138 families that homeschool their children, and that's quite a bit in terms of FTE.
And each one of them is supposed to have 45 college credits?
Or follow a plan that has them connecting with a certified teacher. I think it's once a week for, I think it's 30 minutes once a week that they review their curriculum and process. As part of that too, they're supposed to take any required assessments that any other student at that grade level. So like we start the SBA at 3rd grade and then it goes on from there. They're required to take those assessments as well. One of the greatest challenges we see with homeschoolers is when they reach the high school level and decide to go back to the high school and the public school. It's very difficult to transfer their credits because they haven't been logging their hours, they haven't been logging, you know, the different credits per course that they're taking. So there's no connection to the actual course. So like US history is a requirement, but you can't tell within their logs. They didn't maintain the logs as they're required to do. They don't have any evidence that they took that class, and yet they're asking the high school to give them credit for it. So it puts the high school principal in a little bit of a bind, right, Sarita?
A lot of a bind, actually.
I don't want to over this.
So what do we do?
So I think, I brought it to you for discussion purposes. I think the last piece of this is, what we're seeing at the secondary level is students who are now at the point where they have so many unexcused absences, we're filing the compulsory attendance law, known as the Becca bill. With the courts, parents are now pulling their kids out and say, well, I'm homeschooling their kids. It's very difficult for us to track. They're trying to avoid the law. One of the biggest concerns we see is certainly with the credits, but we also see these students are getting through their system, their educational system, but they're not fully prepared for life beyond. And part of our mission in our school district is to prepare students to be adequately ready to move into the work world. So.
And in, I think some of these cases, well, I just had one come up a couple weeks ago where I had no recourse but to sign a form. And the form say the intent to homeschool, but the reason why that happened is the absences were such that we were taking the family to court because the kid wasn't attending school. So homeschool in this case means no school, and that's the challenge. And that's, we've got to come up with some language to deal with. How frequently has this come up that you're aware of?
We probably have about 2 to 3 cases a year.
It seems to be increasing.
So is this something that you guys can come back to us with possible procedures?
And it's hard to sign because if you look at the way the law is written, there's a lot of teeth in it. If you look at the way it's enforced, there's none. And it's not that I feel like I should have some say on whether a parent makes this choice or not. That's not the issue. The issue is kids that aren't attending, aren't participating, have racked up tons of absences, probably had not very good grades. When we attempt to intervene and take all the steps to intervene, the parent just says, well, I'm going to homeschool him or her. That's just not.
I think there needs to be something we should be able to do about that.
Yeah.
And that's where the LEA has the opportunity, so we could expand on our policy and create more accountability in it. I think the other piece is, how do we address those homeschool parents that are following the policy, but how do we get better connections with them so that we actually are sharing our curriculum and they're actually passing the assessments and ultimately doing what we said we were going to do in terms of preparing students for life beyond high school.
Because there's courses that I think kids would like to take at the high school that parents can't offer.
Right.
And when you have a hard time figuring out what they've done, it's impossible to have some good accounting to be able to give them credit for something, you know?
How many kids are we talking about that are homeschooled?
Well, right now we have 138 that have filed with us.
Whoa.
And so we don't know how many have just simply dropped out and are claiming their homeschool. And so that's a tricky piece right there.
Don't some of the parents participate in the curriculum and
There's some
communicate and other ones don't?
There's some that do such an exceptional job, no school system anywhere can compete with what they're doing, but it's a commitment around the clock. I've met families that do such an extraordinary job.
So you got both poles.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount, we don't know what to do, no idea, no clue.
Well, I think for sure we'd be interested in seeing what you can come up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agree?
Definitely.
Because I think, yeah, if they're not gonna be with us, then at least we need to try to help as much as possible, but so they get an education.
Right, exactly, and we could take a look at some of the different programs that are out there. I know we started during COVID, we started working on the parent partnership piece. There's many districts in the state that have a parent partnership program where they do, students do come in for that check-in during the week.
Yeah.
And then they do partial enrollment, which they go to our schools, participate in athletics and things like that. So different possibilities that we could take a look at.
Yeah, bring us what you got. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry you had the very last two
That's
items on the
okay.
agenda.
You gave me cake, I'm okay with it, I'm good.
Take a piece for the road, Paul.
No,
I apologize, I'm sorry.
Do we have executive session?
No.
No. Got it, then. Do we have a motion to?
I make a motion to
end?
adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. All right.
So who do I talk to about like what I'm